So, folks, we have to talk about the fact that Donald Trump is building what appears to be a palace. We've known that he was planning to do this for a while, but it's one thing to know that it's being planned, and then another thing to see it, right? Because there have been numerous revisions and additions to the White House over the years, and usually it's done by artisans and craftsmen and people with expertise in uh various antiquities and architecture, so that it can be done without disturbing the original work of the building. It's hard work, but people specialize in doing it, and like folks have done it in the past, so we know we can do it. However, Donald Trump is not at all interested in doing this project right, because what he wants is a gigantic, gaudy ballroom at the expense of the actual structure of the White House itself. Now, the other day it was reported that the construction was just going to remove the facade of the East Wing, right? However, pictures from today indicate that more than the facade has been taken. It's just a little bit more. Some better pictures of courtesy of Law Dork here show. Yeah, no, they're just literally tearing down the White House. If you had to imagine a more on the nose symbolic act of this presidency, you could not do it. This is it, right? Dude is literally taking apart the White House and trying to make it into his own
The next Democratic president
shit.
should take all his tacky gold shit and melt it into a giant swirl of feces with 45, 47 on it.
Honestly, just doing something with it other than this building. This sucks. Yeah, there isn't a better visual metaphor at all. Depraved ambiance. This is it. We arrived at the peak. The the ideal metaphor. It's crazy. And also Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. A lot of people are saying he doesn't plan on leaving, but let's be real, he's so old that it doesn't matter if he's planning on leaving or not. Let's be so for real right now. You can literally see, look at this. Look at this picture from the Washington Post. They're just throwing a backhoe through the very through the entire thing. It's crazy. And if you are interested in wondering what is this going to look like when it's done, there are some renderings out there at the moment.
He literally paved paradise and put up a parking lot.
No, but literally, here are some renderings of what it's going to look like when it's done. And it's just kind of oh man. Oh man, does that look like shit. Oh boy. Look. It's so bad. Yeah, we're just going to have a giant gold room. We'll call it the piss room. It's a room where everything's just piss gold. A Gen AI rendering? No, these are actual renderings by the construction company. And unless the construction company was using AI, these are what was desired from them. It looks like AI. I mean, it's guys, it's digitally rendered. I don't think it's AI though. Bland and gaudy at the same time. Exactly. Dear God. Just here's the White House. That just
look
this
like
monstrosity.
It got SP lubed on for the render.
It's because everything's white. It'd be too difficult. It'd be too difficult to not make everything white. Just man, this looks ugly as hell. But I just have to say, Donald Trump is building his palace. This is going to cost the taxpayer hundreds of millions of dollars. It's going to cost so much goddamn money to build that building. And it's being done while destroying parts of history, destroying parts of our iconic moments of American history really occurred in the East Wing. And also if you don't give a shit about all that, but understand it's a part of a wider pattern of behavior, right? It's not just, oh, well, he's building a palace and then, that's it. Like, he's building a palace and then also doing some of the most brazen self-dealing at the taxpayer expense I've ever seen in my life. Okay? Here he is today arguing that he should be able to demand that the Justice Department pay him almost $250 million because the Justice Department brought cases against him in the past. For all of his pain and suffering, as president, he's saying his own Justice Department needs to pay him $250 million. That's $250 million in your money. In your money. In our taxpayer money, he is giving himself $250 million. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. And meanwhile, folks, what do we get? What do we get out of all this? Well, first of all, before we get to that, let's hear him make the case for himself to the press.
Did was wrong, and when somebody does what's wrong. Now, with the country, it's interesting because I'm the one that makes the decision, right? And that decision would have to go across my desk, and it's awfully strange to make a decision where I'm paying myself. In other words, did you ever have one of those cases where you have to decide how much you're paying yourself in damages? But I was damaged very greatly, and any money that I would get, I would give to charity.
Yeah, it'll be his charities though. Like, it'll be like the Jared and Don Jr. Foundation, dedicated to giving all of the Trump children named Jared and Don whatever they need should their father pass. Like, it's just, like, whatever. Like, it's just such blatant corruption. It is such blatant misuse of our money. And, like, they don't think anything will ever come of it. They don't think there will be any accountability ever. And, like, this is disgusting. This is disgusting. It is infuriating. There are not words available to me, at the very least. Maybe to you guys, but not to me, that correctly encapsulates how infuriating it is to see this man smugly talk about how, like, oh yeah, it's so weird that I get to give myself $250 million. Tee. Like, fuck this man into the sun. It's so infuriating. But, meanwhile, what do we get? Well, obviously, in exchange for this, we get massive tariffs that have been unilaterally imposed to such a degree that other countries are now making ads to run here in the United States, pointing out how bullshit our tariffs are as imposed by Donald Trump, which, as we know, for those of you who don't know, tariffs are a unilateral tax imposed upon us by Donald Trump. And tariffs, under normal circumstances, are only imposed by Congress. But because Congress is currently being run by Republicans, Republicans have capitulated to such a degree that they have given Donald Trump the ability to just unilaterally impose tariffs. So if you're seeing mid-sized companies suddenly collapsing and dying left and right, if you're seeing farmers suddenly unable to sell their crops on an international market, if you're suddenly seeing small and medium-sized businesses collapse en masse, and your goods at the grocery store getting more and more expensive, it is directly attributable to Donald Trump. Directly attributable to Donald Trump. And here's an ad paid for by the good folks in Canada, imploring Americans to, continue coming together and stop this madness that is being imposed by the king, or rather the would-be king. So we'll just take a look at that in a moment.
That doesn't make any sense. I can't just give him that kind of money. I make nowhere near what he's asking for, and then he wants to play with tariff.
I mean that's what, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense because they're fascists. They are power-drunk fascists, and they are giving themselves this money. It doesn't matter if it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter if the whole damn system collapses around them, because fascism is not rational. It's not a rational system of government. It is not a rational or self-preserving system. It is a system that is built on death and destruction, and it continues until it burns itself out, unless, people step in before that occurs. And so we're going to have to do something about this, which is entirely what the No Kings protests were about, right? Those are, you can kind of think of them as stepping stones towards defeating this administration and this fascism that is gripping the heart of our country. It is designed to get more and more people involved until there is a critical mass that is reached and demands are made that cannot be ignored. So that's kind of the goal. And what you are seeing from places like Canada is that they are attempting to influence that political movement to also reject the tariffs, which I think is a pretty basic ask that we should absolutely embrace. Let's take a look at their ad.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Literally paid for by the government of Ontario. And I just want to say, that's Reagan. That's Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, the guy who really kicked the ball down the hill that brought us to where we are right now, okay? And what you have to understand, Ronald Reagan is as conservative as they get. Like a conservative's conservative. They all put him up on a pedestal, right? And the fact that what Ronald Reagan said when he was president comes across as frankly, in the current context, if you take Ronald Reagan's exact words and show them to Trump supporters, they're going to be like, that's a liberal. They're going to be like, there's a goddamn communist right there. They're going to be dismissive of it. And it's we're at a point here where it's Ronald Reagan is able to agree with us on some very basic salient points, which is that useless unilateral tariffs harm us. It is Ronald Reagan, the actor, exactly. This is what we get. We get ads throwing Ronald Reagan's words back in our faces because our system and our leadership has failed to such a degree that the guy whose fault it is that we are in this situation in the first place is still somehow to the left of all of this madness that is happening. It makes me feel disgusting for this guy's words to be used in this way, and yet that's partly what makes it so effective. Because it is Reagan as a figure is something that even conservatives can come together on. Is that guy had some good points. And then it's hey, wait a minute. Donald Trump disagrees with Ronald Reagan. And the hope is, I think, from the people putting an ad together like this, is that it will shake some of the cult of personality hangers on off of Donald Trump. Except, we'll see if that happens. I do want to point to one example of where that might be happening, right? What do we all get while Donald Trump builds his palace and imposes unilateral taxes on us in order to fund said palace and his other passion projects of grifting us for hundreds of millions of dollars to give to his own family? One of his constituents, core constituency that he made a big deal about during every single bid he has made for president is, of course, the coal miners. And I want to bring all of your attentions over to this piece that went up today in The Nation Trump has handed coal miners a death sentence, but they're not going without a fight. After the government betrayed them by refusing to enforce a crucial workplace health rule, a group of coal miners traveled to DC to put Trump on notice. And it's literally that Donald Trump brought black lung back. This story is all about how Donald Trump literally brought back the black lung for these miners. Because there had previously been workplace protections governing the amount of silica in the air coal miners can breathe. That rule got suspended by the Trump administration. So now they are developing black lung. It's nuts. Yeah, here is just an excerpt here. Due to the ongoing government shutdown, the streets of downtown Washington, D.C. were far from bustling, but a few passersby still stopped to peer at the 80 or so camo-clad demonstrators and read the signs they bore. Silica kills. Stand with us. Enforce the silica rule. Coal miners' lives matter. The protest was an act of both proud determination and brutal desperation. A hard-won federal rule limiting miners' exposure to respirable crystalline silica was meant to go into effect on April 14th. But the Trump administration has refused to enforce it. The Mine Safety and Health Administration, which is nestled within Trump's Labor Department and is now led by a former coal industry executive, voluntarily allowed this to happen. So basically, yeah, these coal miners fought their entire lives to get regulations to save, future generations from developing the black lung. And Donald Trump's administration said, "Oh, ho ho, you thought?" And then put a coal mining executive in charge of the administration that enforces that rule. And then they said to the coal miners, "You can die for us, please." Like, that's where it is. That's where it is right now. We've got Donald Trump building a goddamn palace and destroying one of the most iconic pieces of American architecture, while also self-dealing and grifting hundreds of millions of dollars from the American taxpayer, while also taxing us unilaterally, putting a burden upon every single American, big or small, in this country. And even the people that he ostensibly represents, the working class white folk of America, the coal miners, he's killing them. He's killing them so that his mine baron friends can make slightly more money. It is disgusting. It is disgusting. And if you are wondering what I mean when I say, these No Kings protests are vitally important, it's because it gives us an outlet to show our displeasure. It gives us an outlet to organize amongst ourselves. It gives us an outlet to make a show of force so that it's not just 80 people in the streets, it is millions of people in the streets. It is a way for us to network amongst ourselves, to grow our organizing apparatuses and make bigger and bigger demands. And as these protests grow, which for all of the reasons I just listed, they are going to continue to grow, so too will our demands. And as we get bigger, we must demand things like an end to the tariff regime. We also must demand a return to regulations that keep our workers safe and alive, because that is killing everyday working class people in this country. The very people Republicans pay lip service to every single election, they are killing for their own benefit. We need to continue to organize and to continue to grow, because there is a difference between a standalone protest and a movement. And one of the things we are seeking to do as a country, those of us who oppose authoritarianism and fascism, we are seeking to transition from this just being a singular protest day to being something that engages you every day. Something that engages you not just for one day, a handful of hours, but for a prolonged and sustained period of time, because prolonged and sustained engagement, that's what makes us a movement. And that is what makes us unbeatable to these fascist ghouls. Okay? And so that is our goal. Our goal is to make civic engagement bigger and deeper and more sustained at every conceivable turn. That's where you guys come in. That's where you guys have agency. That's where you guys can actually accomplish, you know? Because it's not just me. It's not just one of you. It is all of us together. Okay? And against all of us together, these motherfuckers don't have a shot. So we're going to have to keep on doing the hard work of grinding day in and day out to get more people to come out to protest, to get more people informed, to get more people out there doing something for their neighbors. Because, guys, we are on the verge, as Donald Trump builds his palace, we are on the verge of people losing SNAP benefits. We are on the verge of people missing government paycheck after government paycheck. And we are on the verge of seeing our communities truly in need and desperation. And we need to be looking around to see, what can we do? What can you do? What can I do? What can all of us do together? Because we need to be there for each other. It's not just turning out the protest. It's not just, being angry at this regime. It is also showing love and compassion for one another and building the bridges that will keep us afloat as this tide rises. That was a confused metaphor, but I think you all take my meaning. So with that being said, get involved. And if you're looking for something to get involved in or how to get involved, one of the ways you can get involved, not the only way, one of the ways you can get involved is joining this community, !Discord in any of the chats. And you can reach out to Gamergy for help joining your local DSA or even forming your own local DSA branch. And you can reach out to Dragonfly for help to join your local Dems. And if you're looking for, hey, what could I do in my local area that might be helpful in this present moment, one of the things you could do is take a page out of Montana's book. And I've been harping on this for a hot minute here. I'm going to link this post in all of the chats. This is from the Daily Montanan. But basically, it is talking about an initiative in Montana that would effectively curtail Citizens United and would block companies from spending money on elections. We should be trying to get this passed in every single state so that no state can have their elections bought by corporations and corporate power. That being said, folks, if there are things you are looking to do, you can start there. There's a piece of legislation to push with your local DSA and your local Dems, okay? We have the means, we have the power, we can act, we can do this, so we should take the opportunity. Get involved today and make it happen. There we go! Like, comment, and subscribe!
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.